Odds were in my favor. I had 'em 5-1. And that leg to win came around the track. Sure enough, we had won.
The week went a little bit slow. Caught a lot of scratches. Horses that I thought would run good didn't. Sometimes racing luck plays into your favor. Sometimes it plays against you. Just gotta go with the flow and look forward and just look for the next horse you're gonna ride. Look for the next race. I rode a couple horses for Mike Rivas. He had just recently claimed them. They were headed up in class. They didn't jump up and win, but they ran good races. One of the recent claims was Star of Paradise. Claimed for $18,000, steps him up into the non-2 allowance race. When we left the gate, Star of Paradise, he broke kind of evenly. Those couple horses down on the inside that had broke sharp and went ahead and went for the lead. I had the horse on the inside, but I wanted to try to get tucked down as much as I could, save the most ground. The horse on the outside broke sharper than I did and had dropped down and settled in front of me. The favorite, the horse that I thought was the horse to beat in the race, had run up on my outside, and I was kind of set, just sitting in a pocket, just having to wait. The horses up on the lead, as we turned down the backside, started, easing away from us. And so I didn't want to get stuck in behind those other horses. So as Yankee Diller started to move, I followed him. I eased outside the 9 and kind of let my horse out a little bit to try to make sure I was in striking distance around the turn when we turned for home, so hopefully maybe I could run him down. As we went around the turn, I seen those horses on the lead starting to come back to us, and the 2 was still tucked down on the fence, so I was trying to let my horse out a little bit to maybe try to beat him to the punch, because he kind of cut it close before he was able to get out. He was able to ease out, and when he cut his horse loose, he went on. He finished very strong, nice horse, and was the horse to beat, I think. But I kept after my horse, and he kept on. He was stepping up in class, and ended up running a good race. Ended up third, just getting nipped at the wire for second. The other Rivas horse, Price's Posse, just coming off a win. Won for $25,000, stepped him up to $50,000. When he left the gate, he broke sharp, but lots of other horses went sending out of there. I just wanted to try to tuck in and save as much horse as I could. As we went around the turn, I stayed on the fence. I went inside a couple horses. As we went through, I had Cisco on my outside. That was kind of, his horse was drifting out a little bit with him, so I was able to get through there. As we're turning for home here, I'm kind of looking to where, I might want to go. I seen there's a couple horses, the one that's kind of stopping a little bit, and the 2 horses on the lead. I still thought that I had a good chance to win. I felt like I still had a lot of horse, and I kind of wanted to ease him out to try to get a clear path. The poly track was really coming back a lot that day, so I just wanted to get him out of the poly track to where nothing was hitting him in the face, where he could continue to run home strong. Every time I got into him, he just kept trying harder and harder. He never quit. He ran strong all the way to the wire. Yeah, so we had this Equisight helmet camera for a while now, about 3 months, I guess. It's been neat. We've seen lots of different stuff, lots of different angles that you typically wouldn't see from your, regular head-on pan shot. So it's been neat to capture some of the footage of tight spots, some of the different angles, and also why a jockey might make the decision that he made at that time that you might not necessarily understand if you're watching your regular camera views. I rode Static Kill for Mike Rivas. I had put the helmet camera behind that time. I knew I was going to be coming from off the pace. I knew my horse, I knew that he had a good shot to win, so I was trying to capture images of me running by horses as we went down the lane. It ended up, I caught something a lot different that you normally don't see a whole lot. A horse grabbed heels on the inside of me, almost went down. Jock ended up on the horse's neck. Got back up amazingly, and Jock stayed on, and ended up running second. You end up seeing lots of different crazy shots. You know, you might see horses clipping hills, horses getting out a hole that a jockey might have decided to go in that ended up closing really fast, because holes open and close at a blink of an eye. It's much more up close and personal to be able to see what truly might have went on to cause those close calls to happen. So I was on Shelley's Wild for Mike Rivas. It ended up looking like there was a hole opening up for Seth. It closed on him really fast, and you know, he clipped hills. Turned out everything was all right. How that horse stayed up and how Seth stayed on, I don't really know. But you know, the horse ended up almost going all the way down, ended up all the way to his belly, but horses are amazing animals. I don't know how they could be running at that speed, have something like that happen, and still be able to get up and gather their feet up underneath them and still be able to finish the race. You know, I've got one more month left of the meet, one more month to wear the helmet cam. So hopefully this last month with the helmet cam, we'll catch a lot more good stuff, and hopefully that helmet cam will lead me back to the winner's circle.